In today's video, I will be reading from the memoirs of Leading Seaman Aubrey Elkington, who was a South African sailor seconded to the Royal Navy during the Second World War. I have the privilege of having his medals and his memoirs in my personal collection, and his memoirs are full of interesting stories, but the excerpt that I will be sharing with you today really stands out for me. It takes place the day after the surprisingly uneventful Salerno beach landings of September 1943. Elkington served on several Royal Navy ships during the war, but at this point he was on the HMS Ledbury, which was a Hunt-class destroyer tasked with escorting troop ships during the landings. You'll notice at a certain point in the excerpt that he refers to a certain South African Portbridge Oerlikon gunner. He is actually referring to himself here. I don't know why he decided to go to third person for this point in the story, but I think it may have been for modesty, but the actions of the South African gunner are definitely Elkington himself, and official records confirm this. Something else to note is he only wrote his memoirs some 50 years after the fact, so please excuse him if there are minor details that are incorrect, but I will be reading it exactly as he wrote it. So let's cue the epic music and let's begin. The next morning, before first light, we exercised our discretions and closed up to our defense stations, ready and waiting. The Ledbury had now moved from the beachfront with our sister ships. During the night, the vast majority of the ships had weighed anchor and sailed for various African ports, escorted by American cruisers and destroyers. The 4 Royal Navy minesweepers and the 3 little Hunts remained behind. The sun was rising and casting a beautiful orange glow across the Mediterranean. Our radar picked up 4 aircraft approaching the ship. We immediately hoisted the black pennant to warn our sister ships. As the 4 JU-88s were flying low over the sea and coming out of the rising sun, we immediately increased speed and laid a heavy smoke screen over the merchant ships. The Lauderdale and the Blackmore followed suit. As the wind drifted across, so the smoke covered the ships. As if all hell broke loose, all 3 destroyers opened fire with their 12 4-inch guns together. This intensified and electrifying effect had the pilots banking sharply away to a safer distance to watch and wait. Now we knew they would try again from another angle. These Luftwaffe squadron leaders were no fools, and they would not give up easily. The 3 Hunt-class destroyers were also veterans at this game of hide and seek. Our lives depended on doing the right thing at the right time. We were waiting for the Luftwaffe to make the next move. Then it happened. The 4 JU-88s came in a single line ahead to bomb us. We slew our starboard quarter and opened fire with a broadside. The squadron leader deviated portside, while the 2nd aircraft deviated to the starboard side. The 3rd and 4th JU-88s simply never carried it through and turned away. Again, we had outfoxed the enemy, but not for long. These 4 JU-88s were determined to try yet a 3rd time. This time from our port quarter, and again we drove them off. When they realized our defense was too good, they abandoned the attempt and flew back to their base to make their report. We continued guarding the anchored merchant ships, which was our prime responsibility, until further orders were given. It was 11:55, and although we were constantly in 2 watches, the bosun's mate piped, "Afternoon watchmen, close up," as the forenoon watchkeepers were being relieved and coming down below decks to have their lunch, and the afternoon watchmen were closing up and started reporting their presence to the officer of the watch. The rattlers sounded off action stations, and the black pennant was hoisted once again. Jerry had really caught us off guard this time. Before we could reach our guns, the ship immediately lurched forwards. For a few seconds, we thought that we had been torpedoed as we overbalanced. To our relief and joy, the watchkeepers on the bridge, as well as the engine room watchkeepers, were ever ready, and the ship was just taking defensive actions when 8 JU-88s were seen from a distance. These men had ordered full ahead on both engines as we lurched forward, so we rode the swell. Our continuous short zigzagging kept us hiding in and out of the smoke screen for a while as it drifted to and fro. It eventually covered many of the merchant ships. The enemy was sighted at an angle of 70 degrees, bearing red 4-5 degrees, and heading towards the merchant ships. The 3 destroyers formed a semicircular screen on the leeward side as the best form to open fire with the 4-inch guns. The blue sky was peppered with dozens of charcoal grey puffs of smoke as shells burst all around the approaching bombers. Again, the enemy veered away to a safe distance and circled around, waiting and watching. It was uncertain what their plan was now. Would they go for a high-level bombing, or would they still try dive bombing? We were made to believe that they had decided, for the 2 squadrons flew away from each other and then suddenly banked inwards and screamed down on either side of the shipping. As they came to us, the 3 destroyers opened their distances, with the Lauderdale and the Blackmore moving around the shipping. The first 4 came down in a dive, single line ahead, with their powerful engines screaming and making such a demoralizing noise, but we had to remain cool, calm and collected. As they straightened out, so the first aircraft dropped its bomb some distance from the ship's side. The second JU-88 also dropped its bombs, but were well clear of the objective, our ship. The third and fourth again turned away. Maybe they had lost their nerve when we intensified our firing rate. While we were concentrating on the first 4 aircraft, the second squadron had also attempted to get past the Lauderdale and the Blackmore. One JU-88 was seen heading for the Italian mainland with black smoke belching from its port radial engine. Whether it made it back home was debatable. Now, Jerry played a trump card, one that could have sunk a large merchant ship or the destroyer Ledbury. It happened while we were concentrating on our attack and defense against the dive bombers coming in at us from a 70-degree angle in the sky. A 9th JU-88 came in suddenly, skimming the surface of the sea. No one had seen it approaching us on the port side. None, that is, except a certain wide-awake South African Portbridge Oerlikon gunner. Guns were firing in all directions to skywards. There were so many flashes from muzzles that it looked like a fireworks display. The noise of the guns firing and the demoralizing drones of the aircraft were nerve-wracking. As the Ledbury zigzagged in and out of the dense smoke, there it was, a big black twin-engine bomber loaded with an 18-inch torpedo, flying only 10 feet above the surface of the sea. It was quite scary to see it so close to our ship's side. Before the pilot could release the torpedo, the Oerlikon gunner placed his open circular sight with the center cross wires on the nose of the JU-88, as that presented the maximum hitting area, and squeezed the trigger hard. As the traces fell short, so the gunner elevated, at the same time allowing a little trajectory on either side. Then it happened. Yes, a hit. The pilot was hit. It sounded like a small explosion inside the cockpit. Lights were flashing on and off. The aircraft was out of control and started swaying heavily from side to side. It was jerking a lot and was reducing its speed. As it came to a position of a red 20 degrees, the gunner pumped another full magazine into the fuselage. This did it. The heavy bomber, loaded with a torpedo, was badly damaged and only managed to fly another 40 yards past us before it pancaked into the sea. Suddenly, the bits of hot metal flew in all directions, and then 2 fires broke out on the Ledbury's upper deck. This really startled us, as we never expected anything like this to happen so quickly. The biggest fire was caused by the red-hot metal from the JU-88 landed on our pom-pom gun deck, coming in contact with some oily sacking covering the hydraulic oil bin. The other fire was on the quarterdeck. It was also started by hot metals hitting our after 4-inch guns' hydraulic oil bins. For a few anxious minutes, we were all startled and dumbstruck as the fires were now getting larger and spreading, and our ammunition lockers were only a few feet away. We would have been blown to smithereens. To this day, I have a great respect for the so-called common old stokers, for it was these guys that not only saved the ship from blowing up, but saved their shipmates as well. The stokers' fire party with their extinguishers came to the rescue and put the 2 fires out in a few minutes. But what long and harrowing minutes they were for us, as we helplessly watched with bated breath. We silently prayed for survival, and our prayers were answered. For his actions at Salerno Beach, Leading Seaman Aubrey Elkington was awarded a mention in dispatches. Elkington served in the Royal Navy for the rest of the war before returning to South Africa. He earned 5 campaign stars and was entitled to a 6th, the Arctic Star, but as the Arctic Star was only instituted in 2012, he never received it. He was also entitled to an Africa Service Medal, but he incorrectly thought he wasn't entitled to it since he served in the Royal Navy and not the South African Navy, so he got rid of it. But in fact, South Africans seconded to British forces were still entitled to the Africa Service Medal. I suppose I could get a unnamed Africa Service Medal and Arctic Star to mount with his medals, but I prefer to just leave them the way that he wore them. Then later he joined the South African Navy as an instructor, and that's how he got his John Chard Medal with a Navy clasp. And finally, his Soviet Medal was awarded to him 50 years after the war as a thank you from the Russian government for his contributions in escorting Royal Navy ships with much needed supplies to the Eastern Front. So all in all, a very interesting group of medals that tell an even more interesting story of the man who earned them. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it. Cheers.